Kadosh, Erev Tov, good evening. Masechet Megillah Daf 19a1. We are by the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Ben Ir Shalach Lekrach. Imagine right now you are a person of a city and you go to a krach. Krach is a place which is surrounded by a wall. Okay, so here it's actually surrounded by a wall. Remember, what's the difference between a wall city and a city that is surrounded by a wall? A regular city reads the Megillah on the regular city on the 14th, and a walled city is going to read it on the 15th. So it says here, Ben Ir Shalach Lekrach Ben Krach Shalach Leir. So what happens if they switched? So he says the Mishnah, if you're going to go back to your city, Korek Komo. So you go according to your place. Vim Lav, and if not, Korei Mahen, you read with them, which means, let's say I'm from Bnei Berak, which is Yudalit, and all of a sudden I go to Israel, to Yerushalayim. So Yerushalayim is Tedvav. So if I'm going to stay in Yerushalayim, I read with Yerushalayim. But if I'm going to go back to Bnei Berak, so then I have to read just like Bnei Berak as well. So says the Gemara, this is what we spoke about in this morning's daf, which is today's daf, to do with where do you start reading the Megillah and you're going to be Yetze Yedeh Chova. Rabbi Meir Omer Kula. Shitat Rabbi Meir, the entire thing. You have to read the Megillah from the beginning until the end. Rabbi Yehuda says, Mi ish Yehudi. Ish Yehudi. Rabbi Yosef says, from after these words that Achashverosh came and he was Gidal Timan. So basically, we're going to explain that each one was, if you hold the entire thing, so it actually makes sense. We're going to see in the Gemara that's going to explain this. Okay, says the Gemara. Amar Rava. Rava comes and he says, Lo shanu ela shati lachzor belelei abasa. When do we say that if you were a ben krach shalach la'ir or so on and so forth? It's only if you're going to go back in the nighttime of the 14th before Tamud HaShachar. Aval en atid lachzor belelei arba'asar. If you're not going to go back before the night of the arba'asar, which means you're going to stay there until after Alot HaShachar, korei mahem. Which means Alot HaShachar is the time. You understand? That's the time. What does it mean, the time? The time is that that's going to be when it's going to be the exact time, the moment when it's going to be the cutoff. So if by Alot HaShachar you're going to be with them, that's it. If you left beforehand, so then you're okay. But even though you were there at the night time, doesn't matter. So imagine you had a guy from Yerushalayim. He goes to Bnei Berak on the 14th. He does not have to hear the Megillah if he's going to leave before Alot HaShachar. But if he's going to be there after Alot HaShachar, he has to read with them. Says the Gemara, Rava says, how do we know this? How do I know that if you went from one place to another place, you're going to read the Megillah just like with that place, even though you're going to go back? If it already says that the Jews, which they are living in the dispersed countries, dispersed cities, so why does it have to say Hayoshavim Bare Perazot? Hayudim Perazim already means Jews which are dispersed. So why do you have to say that they're dwelling in dispersed cities? You already said that. So it comes to teach you Paruz ben Yomo Nikra Paruz. That somebody that is going to be an Ir Peruza only just for that one day is called Paruz, and therefore he reads the Megillah on the Yudalit, even though he lives in Yerushalayim. So you have a guy from Yerushalmi. You know what a Yerushalmi is? Guy from Yerushalayim. And he's been living, he was born in Yerushalayim, he lives in Yerushalayim. Everything's Yerushalayim. But he goes to Bnei Berak, or he goes to Ramah Bet Shemesh, right? Or all these other places which is not Yerushalayim. So now says the Gemara, he's a Paruz ben Yomo. He's considered in a scattered city just for that day. And the fact that just for that day that's considered a scattered city, that's it. He has to read the Megillah with them. So says the Gemara, Ashkechan Paruz, but that's only to do with Paruz. Mukaf Menala. How do we know the vice versa? How do you know that if you have a person living in an unwalled city, right? A not walled city, a big city, go to a walled city that he has to read now like the walled city? Says the Gemara, Svarai. So Svara. The Paruz ben Yokaru Paruz, Mukaf ben Yokaru. If by the dispersed, meaning the person that always do Shalom, he comes now and he switches. So he's considered Ben Yomo. So same thing. Over here, the exact same halacha. Rava says, Ben Kfar Shalach Le'ir. Right? When you have a Ben Kfar that goes to a city, okay, Ben Kach, whether he's going to leave or he's not going to leave, Korei Mahen. He's always going to read with the city. So remember one more time. Our Mishnah was only talking about cities and walled cities, and vice versa. You live in a regular city that you went to a walled city, or you live in a walled city, you go to a regular city. And remember that the Megillah is always read on different days there. What about now a kfar? A kfar was a village. So we said that a village usually reads on 11, 12, 13, it depends when is the Yom Knisa, when is the Monday or Thursday. So here it says, here the difference is that if he's going to be in the city, he's going to read with them. My Tama, what's reasoning? Really, be'emet, he always has to read like Bnei, meaning a villager is always supposed to do like the 14th. That's the normal. However, the Rabbananu, there was a special leniency that the rabbis did to the people that live in villages. That way they would be able to give water and drinks, water and food and everything to their brothers in the Kachim. One of these words, only if he's going to be found in the Kfar on the night of the 14th, and therefore he's not going to be Chayav. But if he's already found in the city, so then he has to read like the city. Okay? Makes sense. Next. 8 Abaye makes sense, no? Yeah? 8 Abaye. So Abaye comes and he asks the following question to Rava. A person that lives in a krach, that he goes now to the city, whether it's going to be that he's going to come back or not, he's always going to read it in the proper time. He's going to read it in the place where he is, which is the Tetvav, meaning the place where he was. Like where he, remember, the krach here is a walled city. So you have a guy from Yerushalayim. He goes to Bnei Brak. Doesn't matter if he's going to go back or not. He always reads like Bnei Brak. So says the Gemara, Ben krach sal kadaita. Do you really think? Everything had to do whether he was going to return to his city or not. Rather, no, Ben Kfar shelachli. We're talking about Ben Kfar, not a Ben. Ben Krach, we already mentioned the halacha in the Mishnah. It's a Ben Kfar. There's a Ben Kfar, which is a villager. He's always going to read it on the 14th, unless there's going to be some reason why he's not going to. So says the Gemara, if he's going to, if he's going to be in the city, so then he's always going to read it in the city. Okay? Tani Kore Mahen. Says Rava to Abaye, and he says, no, didn't I already answer you? Tani Kore Imahen. Right? It says, don't say Kore Kim Komo. Kore Imahen. That means there was a different version. They had the Braita which was written, Kore Kim Komo, you have to read it like what he has it. It says, no, that's not the way you're supposed to read it. Kore Imahen, you have to read it like them, the way that they are over there. Okay, now we're analyzing the next part of the Mishnah. Okay, so this is a new topic, analyzing the other part of the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, where do you read the Megillah and you're going to be Yitzchak Chovah? So Rabbi Meir, if you remember, said the entire Megillah. Rabbi Yehuda says from Ish Yehudi Ayav Shana Birah from Mordechai. And Rabbi Yosef says from Echad HaDvarim Haele, which is Haman. Says the Gemara, we went to the Braita, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai brings another explanation. So in our Mishnah, we have three opinions. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef. Now we have Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. Yeah, another one. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. What does it say? Balaylahu, chapter 6. So the first one says Kula, it's the entire 10 chapters. The one that says it's Ish Yehudi is already from Perek Bet. The one that says right from Haman is Perek Gimel, and the one that says Balaylahu is Perek Vav. Okay, the 6th chapter. So says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Ve'kula mikra echad harshu. Do you know that all of them, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, and Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, Rashbi, they all learn it from the same pasuk. How do they learn it from the same pasuk? Mikra echad harshu. It says Esther Malka and Mordechai Yehudi, they wrote it with all the tokef, with all the strength. What is a tokef? It's the ikar. Tokef is the main part, the principle. So Mandamar, according to the one that says Kula, the entire Megillah you have to read, that's Sukos Shel Achashverosh. That's the entire ikar of Achashverosh. Achashverosh was for the beginning of the Megillah until the end of the Megillah. So that's 10 chapters. You have to read all 10 chapters. Mandamar, according to the Mandamar that says Nish Yehudi, it's Sukos Shel Mordechai. It's only the chapters of Mordechai. When does Mordechai Yehudi come into place? In chapter 2. So that's when you're going to start reading from Ish Yehudi in the middle of chapter 2. The one that says that you're going to read it from Haman, that after these words, Achashverosh came and he made Haman Agagi so great. So that's Tokvo Sheleman. That's the greatness of Haman. So that starts in Perek Gimel. And the Manda Amar Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai that he says, Tokvo Shenes, it's a miracle. When did the miracle start happening? Chapter 6. Chapter 6, when the king could not sleep, and all of a sudden everything started falling into place. That was the miracle. So you're going to read it from chapter 6. Okay? Rav Huna comes and he says, no, even though these 4 rabbis were coming and telling you this, it's really Be'emet coming and teaching you. It's going to be somewhere else. Where is it going to be somewhere else? He comes and he says, it's going to be somewhere else. He says, it's another pasuk. What's the other pasuk? Umar ra'u al kacha, umay higia lehem. What does that mean, mara'u al kacha, umay higia lehem? The explanation is, the days of Purim were going to be nikva with kol divrei ha'igeret azot, right? Which is Megillah Daf. So according to that, mara'u, what did they see? Okay, so now this is a new pasuk. Beforehand, we were coming and we were talking about tokbo, the tokef, right? Tokef. So who's the tokef? The principle of what? Chashverosh, Mordechai, Haman, or the miracle. Now we're coming and we're saying, what did they see? Man da Amar, what is the man da Amar mean that says you're obligated to read the entire Megillah Kula? Mara Chashverosh shenishtamesh bekelim midrash.
Yeah, sure.
What exactly did Achashverosh come and he see, right, in order, right, to use the kelim of the Bet HaMikdash? Al-Kacha, on this. What is Al-Kacha? Mishum dechashiv shivim shenim velo yitparu. Because he went, and so Mara Al-Kacha ma'yelem. What did he see to use the kelim of Bet HaMikdash? He calculated the 70 years, and they weren't redeemed. Since they weren't redeemed after the 70 years, so he went and he took out the kelim of the Bet HaMikdash. Umay gi alehem. So what happened? The second that he went and he did that, you came and you used the utensils of the Bet HaMikdash, somebody gets killed. Always. Who got killed last time? Masechet. Who's Masechet? The father of Vashti. Now who's going to get killed? Vashti. Umay gi alehem, the katal Vashti. He killed Vashti. Yeah? Umanda, according to the mandama that it says, Me'ish Yehudi, which is the shita of, not Rabbi Meir, but rather Rabbi Yehuda. So he says from Mordechai, Mara Mordechai di Haman. What did Mordechai come that he saw to make Haman all jealous? And he was the only one that didn't bow down to him. Al-Kacha. What is Al-Kacha? The Shavin of Avodah Zarah. Because since Haman made himself into an Avodah Zarah, that's why he didn't bow down to him. Umay gi alehem, and what came to them? Titrach Shnisa, that there was a miracle that happened. That's why there was the Ish Yehudi. Next, Manda Mamachar Dvim Ele, according to the Shitat Rabbi Yosef, that it's going to be Perek Gimel, which is Haman Arasha. So he says, Mara, Haman Yudim. Why did Haman come and start becoming jealous of all the Jews? Al-Kacha on this. What is on this? Mordechai did not bow down to him. So therefore he says, so what happened to him? They hung him and his sons on the tree. So you see from here. So again, one more time, each one we're going through now a new pasuk in order to understand how do we need to read the entire Megillah. The last one, which is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Manda Amar, right, which is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Balayla, which is the 6th chapter. Why did Achashverosh want to bring the books of remembrances, the book Sefer Zechronot? Why did he want to do that? He says, Al-Kacha on this, because Esther went and she invited Haman with him. Meaning, Aywa, you're a new queen. The first thing that you're going to do is, how romantic is it that you're going to invite your husband, by the king, with his advisor? Like Aywa, you need a shomer as well, right? You can't have yichud, you can't, like, what's going on? So therefore, that's why he brought the Sefer Zichronot. So what happened? So he comes and he says, Umay gi alehem, what happened to them? Titrachesh nisa, the miracle that happened. Okay? Now we're going to see what's halacha. Amar Rabbi Chalbo, Amar Rabbi Chama, Rabbi Yom Rav, says Rabbi Chalbo, Rabbi Chama, Rabbi Yom Rav, halacha k'divrei Omer, halacha is like Rabbi Meir, that it says kula, you have to read the entire thing. Filu mandama mishudi, and even according to the mandama that Ishudi, which is going to be basically Rabbi Yosef, or Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, or Rabbi Yehuda, and everybody else, according to everybody, you need the Megillah to be written in full. Meaning, according to everybody, the Megillah has to be written from Perek Aleph until Perek Yod. There's no questions asked. Question is, when do you need to read the Megillah? Do you start in the middle? Do you start by Perek Vav, Perek Gimel, Perek Bet, Perek Aleph, the entire thing? That's the question. But to be written, according to everybody, has to be written the entire thing. Okay? Now we're going to next halacha. Again, the same rabbi that we just brought above. Right? Rabbi Chelbo, the name of Rabbi Bar Gurion, the name of Rav, Megillah Nikret Sefer. Do you know that the Megillah Teser is called a Sefer? Right? V'nikret Yigeret, and it's called Yigeret. It says in the Megillah, U'ma'amar Esther kiyam divrei Purim ale v'nichtav b'Sefer. It's written in the Sefer, and it's which is like a book. V'nichtav Yigeret, and it's written. It's a letter, because it says Al Kol divrei Yigeret azot. So Nikret Sefer. Why is it called a Sefer? Shin tefara bechute pishtan, as if you came and you sewed it bechute pishtan with linen, right, with flax, sula, it's going to be pasul, just like a sefer Torah. That's why it's sefer. So it has to be with a good sinus of whether it's going to be a behema or chayat tehora, which is basically from an animal which is a wild animal, a domesticated animal, which is a pure animal. That's where these sinus come from. You know the sinus are the little, that it looks like a fishing rod, but it comes from a behema chayav, right, which is basically a pure animal, and that's what they use to tie together the tefillot of a sefer Torah or of the Megillah. Now it's called an igeret. Why is it called an igeret? She'im itil ba shlosha chutei gitin, because as long as you put 3 tchivot, okay, just like a sefer Torah, right? It's kashera. Okay, so it's going to be kasher. Here it explains, well, okay, there's the Ravya and the Mordecai and everything. That means all you need is 3. You don't need more than 3. Okay? Amar Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman, uvilvad shiu meshulashim. It says even though you're going to do it 3 times, it has to be in 3 different places, which means that the distance is equal, right, between them. Okay? Which means that the first one and the last one, the middle one, they have the same distance. Here I have a picture in order to show everybody. You can't see it. No? Okay. So you can't see it. It's basically the picture showing, right, so weird. No? Okay. Amar Rav Yehuda Mashmuel, says Rav Yehuda name Mashmuel, Koreh Megillah ketubah ben ketubim lo yatsa. If you read a Megillah which is written between the ketubim, that means remember that the Megillah is part of scriptures, ketubim. It's not nach, right? It's not nevi'im, it's ketuvim. Ketuvim, the last one, scriptures. So if you read it amongst a whole bunch of different sefarim of the ketuvim, whether it's Daniel, Ezra, and everything, right? Lo yatsa, you're not going to be tzechovah. Right? Why? Because it looks like you're just reading Psukim of the Mikra. It has to be like an igeret, so an igeret has to be on its own. So now we understand, it has to be like a Megillah, and it has to be like a Sefer. Sefer, it has to be like a Sefer Torah, that it needs to be sewn like a Sefer Torah, therefore it cannot be sewn with flax or whatever it is. But it's also an igeret that it's going to be read on its own. It cannot be part of any other book as well. Amar Rava, says Rava, lo amran ela de lo mechasra u'maitera purpurta. What are we talking about? That the shiur, right? That the shiur of the klaf and everything is not going to be too long and too short. Okay, so he says, aval mechasra miyatra purta. But if there's going to be lacking, which means that it's lacking from one part to another part, between other ketubim, let lamba, so then there's no problem. You're going to be tzechovah. Why? Because then it looks like it's going to be a sefer b'fnei atzmo, which means the fact that you could have the shiur, the measurements of rochav ayiriyot are going to be different, meaning all of a sudden you're reading with a klaf. Yeah, look at me, everyone. You have a klaf. All of a sudden, right, within the klaf, all of a sudden right here, it becomes shorter. Or all of a sudden right here in the middle becomes taller. So therefore, even though it's all attached in one ketubim, the fact that it's shorter or longer, so therefore it's still considered on its own. And therefore you're going to be tzechovah, we're reading the Megillah. Levi bar Shmuel al-Kakari kamed Rav Yehuda b'Megillah. Levi bar Shmuel was reading in front of Rav Yehuda the Megillah. We are on Yutet Amud Bet, 19b. HaKetuvah ben HaKetuvim, which is in between the ketubim. Amalei comes and he says, Hare Amru, they already say, HaKoreh b'Megillah ketuvah ben HaKetuvim lo yatzad. He said, 1 second, but I thought we just said that you're not going to be tzechovah. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, Rav Yochanan says Rav Chia bar Abba, the name of Rav Yochanan, HaKoreh b'Megillah ketuvah ben HaKetuvim lo yatzad. Umala mocha. Right, so he comes, machula mocha. He went and he hit him on his head. Why? He comes and he says, Betzibur shani. He says, this deen that you're not going to be tzechovah is only with a tzibur. But a yachid that's reading on his own, it's going to be okay. Why? Because when you're going to come and you're going to read in a sifat rabim, which means in a lot of people, there's pirsum. So Kriyat Megillah, which is in the ketuvim, the tzibur don't know that it's Kriyat Megillah, and therefore it's not going to be mitparsem, and therefore you're not going to be yotzei yechovah. Amar Rabbi Hiya bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Says Rabbi Hiya bar Abba in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. We're talking about 2, 4, 6, around 6 or 7 lines down. Okay, shiur hatefer halachal Moshe Sinai. When you're going to come, you're going to be tofer the yiriyot of the Sefer Torah to connect them together. Okay, you're going to always leave the katzelion, the katzel tachton shirot little tefirot. That means you're always going to leave a little bit on the top and a little bit on the bottom without any type of tefirot. Okay, which means usually they say that it has to be a minimum of 2 fingers on the top and 2 fingers on the bottom, which means you have, you know what, here. I have here This is Shira Shirim. Sami Maya did for me. Okay, so look, Shira Shirim. Again, you're not going to see it. Okay, so basically, the Shira Shirim. I'm going to take off the virtual background for a minute. There you go.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's a virtual background. So look, this is the Shira Shirim. So now, over here, 2 fingers, if I was going to attach it to a pole, this does not need a pole. It's also Shira Shirim, right? But let's say I was going to attach it, and especially a Sefer Torah, you always have poles. You have the Atzechaim. So therefore, if I'm going to attach it, the 2 fingers on the top, right, which is like 2 thumbs, right? And also on the bottom, 2 thumbs. So there you have to leave it empty. You cannot tie with the tefirot. So here you're going to do the tefirot, let's say right here, which is the stitches, which is going to go on the pole. You have to always leave on the bottom and also on the top. Okay, that's what we just said. Let's continue. Now says the Gemara. Okay, says the Gemara. So again, he hit him on the head. Why did he hit him? Right? What does that mean? He comes and he hit him. He comes and he says, it just means that, he hit part of it or whatever it is. You understand? That's what it means. Okay, so he comes and he says, Velo amru ela kedesh lo yikara. That means the reason why they said that is in order that it doesn't tear. Because if you're going to do it, the entire thing from the katzeh to katzeh, so when a person's coming and he's starting to roll it, he's going to do it so tight. So what's going to happen is that it's going to tear because it's too tight. So therefore they went and they said that you always have to leave a little bit over in order that the golel is going to feel right during this time. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba Amar Rav Yochanan. Says Rav Chia bar Abba name of Yochanan. Ilmaleni shayer b'me'ara she'amad b'Moshe. If right now there would be the dolphin of the me'ara that Moshe Rabbeinu was there, which means when HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to show his mar'e kevodo, right, his kavod, what happened? Hitmino b'me'ara. He put him into the cave in Har Chorev, and he covered on top of him. And that's where he went and he taught him that you give him midot. Because it says over there, Vaya bavor kevodi v'samticha b'nikrat atzur v'sakoticha pi alecha adovri. Which parasha is that? Ki tisa in Shemot, ki tisa. Okay? So it says over here, Eliyahu, also when Eliyahu Navi was in the Me'ara, right, in Har Chorev, HaKadosh Baruch Hu came and sikech al kapo of the same thing. He made like a schach on top of it. Kimlo nekev machat stakit, which is like a machat. Okay, which is mamash to do tfirat stakim mamash in clothing. Lo ayu yecholin la'amod mipnei ha'orah. So Moshe Rabbeinu and also Eliyahu Navi were not able to stand in the me'ara because of the kavod Hashem. It was so strong they couldn't stand up. Shneimar says in a pasuk, ki lo yirani adam b'chai. Okay. Ve'amar Rav Chia bar Abba Amar Yochanan, says Rav Chia bar Abba name of Yochanan. My dicti, what does it mean in the pasuk? Ba'aleim kechol adivim asher diber Hashem imachem bahad. What does it mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes? And this pasuk is obviously telling us, Va'alehem adivarim asher diber Hashem imachem. These are the words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is speaking with you. So why does it say kechol adivarim? So melamed she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe diktuke Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed to Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai all the diktuke Torah. What is diktuke Torah? The ribuis, the miut, the exclusions, the whatever you're including, tiktuke sofrim, that which we're going to learn in Mishnat Rishonim, whether it's that you have an extra kaf, not an extra kaf. Masha sofrim atidim lechadesh, right? What the sofrim are going to come in the mechadesh. My name, what is that? Mikra Megillah. So he actually showed him the Mikra Megillah. Says the Mishnah on Yutet Amubet 19b. Hakol kesherin likrot the Megillah. Everybody is kosher to read the Megillah. Chutz except for Acheresh Shotev Katan, right? Chashu. Rabbi Yehuda Machshir Bekatan. Rabbi Yehuda comes and he argues and he says, no, a Katan that is going to be 9 or 10 years old, that it's already Giyah Lechinuch, is going to be kosher to read the Megillah. Says the Gemara, Man Tana Cheresh, right? Diavad Namilo. Who is the Tana of our Mishnah that says that even a Cheresh cannot do it even with Diavad? Some Rav Matna says Rav Matna, Rabbi Yosei, it's Rabbi Yosei. The Tana as we learned in our Mishnah. Remember, Choresh, usually the Gemara is always going to say Choresh is a deaf mute, right? Even though many times it could be Lem is mute and Choresh is deaf, right? But many times the Choresh is both together, okay? Yeah, both together. That's why I said both. So he says the Talmud we learned in the Mishnah, if you read the Shema and you didn't hear it, Yatsa. Tanakama says you're going to be Chovah Kriyat Shema. Even though you didn't hear it, You were doing like this, but you didn't hear it. You're Yotzei Chova b'diavad. Says Rabbi Yosef, lo yatsa. You're not going to be Yotzei Chova. So therefore, you have to hear it with your ears. So the fact that you have to hear it with your ears, so obviously our Mishnah is going like Rabbi Yosef, that you're not going to be Yotzei Chova Kriyat Shema if you don't hear it with your ears. Same thing, you're not going to be Yotzei Chova the Megillah if you don't hear it with your ears. Umimai Rabbi Yosef, he says the Gemara, who told you it's Rabbi Yosef? Diavad nami lo, and that b'diavad no. Din ma Rabbi Yehuda, maybe it's Rabbi Yehuda. Velechatchila udelo. Maybe this Mishnah is only lechatchila, meaning lechatchila. Somebody's going to ask you, can a cheresh come and read the Megillah for anybody? And says no. Ha b'diavad, but b'diavad shapir dami. Yeah. So here it's also good. So I apologize. Usually cheresh is obviously could also mean both. Here obviously it's not both because the cheresh has to actually speak. He's reading the Megillah. Okay. So here he's saying the Megillah, but he cannot hear the Megillah. So can he be Yotzei Chova? Can he motzi somebody else Yotzei Chova or not? So the Gemara is saying, right? That's what the Gemara is asking. What? According. So it says the Gemara, Hadi Avad Shapidami. So maybe Be'emet, Lechatchila you're not supposed to do, but B'diavad is going to be okay. So says the Gemara, no, you're not going to think that. The Cheresh is just like Shotev Katan, which means the fact that I grouped them together in the Mishnah, they have the same halachot applied to each other. Just like the Shotev Katan, Diavad also is not going to work. Diavad Namilo, Cheresh Diavad Namilo also it's not going to work. The Cheresh. Says the Gemara, Vedima Hakadita Vikadita, which means maybe each one is according to its halachot, right? Which means that the Cheresh is one halacha, that the Chafila no B'diavad, yes, and Shotev Katan, it's even B'diavad no. And so the Gemara, Mediktani Seifa, let's see the Seifa. The Seifa says, Rabbi Yehuda Machshir B'Katan. Rabbi Yehuda says that the Katan, after he's 9 or 10 years old, which means he's going to be okay. So Miklal the Reisha, so obviously then the Reisha is not Rabbi Yehuda. If you tell me Rabbi Yehuda Omer, and that's the Seifa, so the Reisha is not Rabbi Yehuda. Because if not, what did I say Rabbi Yehuda Omer? So obviously it be somebody else. Who was it? Rabbi Yosef. So says the Gemara, V'dilma kula Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe the entire thing is Rabbi Yehuda. Utre kavne katan katani, and there's two different katans. What does that mean? This is what it means to say. Remember that we skipped out those little brackets. Whenever it's like parentheses, you skip them out. If it's squared brackets, we read them. So says the Gemara, everybody's going to be kosher to read the Megillah except for a Cheresh Shotev Katan. One of these words, only by a Katan which is not by Chinuch. But a Katan which is already Chinuch. Even in the Lechatchila you're allowed to. Why? Which means it's not a machloket between Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda. The entire Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. At the beginning, Rabbi Yehuda was talking about a child, which is a little child. A little child for sure is not going to be Motzi Lechovah. But if he's already going to be Magia Lechinuch, he's already at a Chinuch age, he could be Motzi other people Lechovah. He could, right? So says the Gemara, why are you telling me that it's like Rabbi Yehuda and Diavad? Elahad the Tani, that which Rabbi Yehuda b'Metera, Berei der B'Shimon Pazi, Cheresh Hamdaber V'Eno Shomea, Torem Lechatchila. Remember, whenever it's a cheresh, we have to understand what type of a cheresh are we talking about. Stam cheresh is both, deaf mute. Here it's cheresh hamdaber ve'eno shomea. Here it's deaf, but he does speak. Okay? So he speaks. Which one? Sorry, this cheresh is the opposite. I apologize. Right? This cheresh is the opposite. This cheresh is that he's speaking, right? But he's not listening. Okay? So he says, Torem lechatchila. Well, that is a cheresh, exactly. The ilem is the one that doesn't speak. The cheresh is the one that doesn't hear. So he says, Torem lechatchila, he's allowed to be Torem, Trumot Masrot, even lechatchila. So Mani, who is this? Rabbi Yehuda, if you're going to tell me it's Rabbi Yehuda, Diavad in lechatchila, no, that's only Diavad, not lechatchila. The Rabbi Yosef, it's going to be Rabbi Yosef. So even Diavad, it doesn't help. Right? Why? Because Shmiyat HaOzen also does impede even with Diavad. Remember, Rabbi Yosef was always the one that says that if you cannot hear yourself, you're not going to be Yotzei Chovah. Ve'lamai Rabbi Yehuda, but rather what is there? It has to be Rabbi Yehuda. Afilu lechatchila. Elahad Tanya lo yivarech adam bikat hamazon b'libo. The same halacha applies to bikat hamazon. You're not supposed to say bikat hamazon in your heart. A lot of people make this mistake. A lot of people, they come and they do bikat hamazon. You're not supposed to do it in your heart. You have to speak it out. Yeah. Also, v'im birech, no, Amidah is a machlok. Don't get into Amidah. Yeah, the Ben Ish Chai, Kaf HaChaim, the Ben Ish Chai, Kaf HaChaim. The according to the Kabbalah, you're not allowed to hear yourself at all. Move lips, yes, but not to hear yourself. According to the Kabbalah, that's the Ben Ish Chai, Kaf HaChaim. There's a lot of them. But According to the halacha, you have to hear yourself. But that's why I didn't want to get to Amidah. Don't get into Amidah. But if you did do the bracha without hearing yourself, yatsa yedei chova. You are going to be yedei chova b'diavad. So who's this? Obviously, it's not like Rabbi Yehuda, not like Rabbi Yosef. Because if it's like Rabbi Yehuda, so even the chatchila, you could do it in your heart. And if it's going to be Rabbi Yosef, so even b'diavad, it's not going to help. Okay? So says the Gemara on Kaf Amud Aleph on the top, le'olam Rabbi Yehuda. Really, be'emet, it is Rabbi Yehuda. But even the chatchila, you don't need to hear yourself. Okay? V'la kasher, but it's not a question. Hadidei hadrabbe. Rabbi Yehuda, he's coming according to his own shita. His own shita is that lechatchila, you don't even have to hear it with your ears. His rabbi, the rabbi of Rabbi Yehuda, which is Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, he says lechatchila you do need to, but b'diavad you don't need to. The Tanyas we learned to write Rabbi Yehuda. If you read the Shema, you have to hear your ears. Your ears have to hear what you just read. Hashma you have to hear with your ears that which came out of your mouth. He says everything goes after kavanat alev, and therefore, according to him, you see that lechatchila you do need to, but b'diavad you don't need to. So therefore, that's the shita of his rabbi, not the shita of himself. Himself, not even the lechatchila you don't need to hear yourself, but according to him and his rabbi. Okay, very good. We continue with Zot Hashem tomorrow morning.